When Stephen Hendry defeated Mark Williams in the 1999 World Championship final to pick up his 7th world crown, he was unanimously considered to be the greatest player to have ever played the game, up to and including his retirement in 2012. But what were Stephen's greatest shots, and how difficult are they to play? And has he chosen now to come out of retirement because things are changing? Is he still the greatest? A lot of Stephen's greatest shots didn't just win him tournaments in the 90s, they completely changed the balance of power at the top of the game. But you'll rarely find him on a list of greatest shots because only occasionally would he play exhibition shots.
But here's a great example of one of those occasions.
Stephen had already done enough in this frame to draw back level 7-all against Mark Williams when he ended up the wrong side of the pink. But instead of playing round the table, he used the middle jaw to get back on the black. As with all of these shots, I'm looking to recreate it as accurately as possible in the fewest possible attempts, so I get an idea of how difficult the shot is to play. So I'm just looking to stun the cue ball into the jaw here, but with my first attempt I was a little bit worried about going in off, so I ended up missing it by some way. My second attempt, however, was a lot better. I stopped worrying about going in off and I managed to hit the jaw perfectly. Went a little bit too far for the black, but if I can pot it, I'm sure that's good enough. Got that one a little bit quicker than I expected to.
Leave a professional snooker player a shot without risk and you'll be surprised sometimes what they come up with.
It wasn't possible for Stephen to pot a red directly here, so he decides to play one off another red, knowing full well that if he missed he was very unlikely to leave Joe Perry on. These types of shots aren't too difficult once you get a feel for how the balls are going to react, and I was pleased to learn from my first attempt exactly what I needed to do for the second.
Great long potting was always key to Stephen's game, and here's an early example of that against what would become a very familiar opponent.
This was the first ever encounter between Jimmy White and Stephen Hendry at the World Championships, and even at this stage Stephen was already making the most of any chance that Jimmy gave him. What makes this shot incredibly difficult, at least for me, is the amount of backspin I have to generate to get back on the blue. This means both striking the cue ball as low as possible and trying to push my cue through as fast as possible. This made it very difficult to pot, and even when I was getting the shot I wasn't quite screwing back far enough. Eventually I managed to play a shot where I just about got the cue ball far enough back to be able to play the blue. This was just about good enough to call it a successful shot. Back in 1988 Stephen would clear the table from that chance but narrowly lose the match, 13 frames to 12.
Stephen rarely found himself out of position, but when he did, he was really good at recovering the situation.
Winning the frame, he's run out of position. He played for the blue, not the pink.
Even though he's in an awkward position here, Stephen has no trouble getting on the next red.
Oh, but what a recovery this is. That's a tremendous shot.
This shot doesn't require any side spin, but is another one that needs to be struck low and struck well. And I was really happy with the way I struck the first shot, but just didn't quite get enough of a reaction. So with my second shot I absolutely gave it everything and ended up perfectly in position on a choice of reds. After we find Kai from Melton Mowbray in the United Kingdom, we're going to be looking at a shot of far greater significance.
When you're trying to make your first 147 at the World Championships, you ideally want to be in perfect position with the black.
Stephen, however, had an awkward blue and pink to deal with first, and even though he managed to pot the blue and leave himself a nice angle on the pink, he just fractionally overran it, leaving himself a difficult cutback black from the top cushion. Normally this sort of shot isn't too difficult, but the pressure of the situation more than makes up for it, so I thought it would be unfair to have more than one go at it and try and get it in my first attempt.
Okay, can I cope with the pressure to get this on my first attempt? Let's They'll be a little bit nervy with the added pressure. Got it. There. One of the features of Stephen's game is even if he really ran out of position, he'd rarely play safe. So this is probably one of the best safety shots that Stephen ever played.
Playing against the late great Paul Hunter, he manages to judge the cue ball off 2 cushions with precision, jamming it in between the green and the baulk cushion. This shot needs to be played with a small amount of left-hand side, and what makes it really difficult is if you play it a little bit too hard or a little bit too soft, it not only changes the pace of the shot, but the cue ball's direction as well. Getting the pace wrong means I end up catching the red a fraction too thick or a fraction too thin, and could result in me being way out on where I'm aiming. Because of all this, I think I was incredibly lucky to get the shot so quickly, because it could have taken me a lot longer.
If I had to pinpoint the exact moment that Stephen Hendry became the best player in the world, I'd choose right after he played this shot in the UK Championships of 1990.
Steve Davis was well in front in the only frame he needed to take the title, but after just running out of position and a slightly failed safety shot, it left Stephen a small chance to get back in the match, which he took and managed to get back in the frame until he failed to get on the final blue. Everybody was expecting him to play safe, because if he missed this incredibly difficult blue, he'd almost certainly lose the entire match. But Stephen wasn't one from turning down opportunities. What makes this shot incredibly difficult is you have to play it slow, otherwise the cue ball will come back into the middle of the table. And it's incredibly difficult to play the cue ball slow with maximum side spin and backspin. There's no way I'd take on this shot in an important stage of a match, because I really wouldn't fancy getting it first time. After he potted the blue, Stephen still needed the awkward pink to win the frame and force a decider, which he won, taking the match 16 frames to 15 and beginning a new era in the sport.
Stephen's last 147 in the World Championships of 2012 involved a couple of really impressive shots.
When you see how far out of position Stephen found himself after potting the black for 16, cannonading the reds, but failing to keep the cue ball at this end of the table, it's a surprise he made any form of break, let alone a 147. A dangerous pot like this is impressive at the best of times, let alone at the start of a massive break. I really like the look of this shot and fancy myself to pot it and get on the black first time, but my first attempt couldn't really have gone any worse. My second attempt was a lot better, but I didn't quite manage to leave myself a potable black. I just played the cue ball with a fraction too much left-hand side, so I cut back a little bit and managed to leave myself in roughly the same place as Stephen. But we'll find out a lot more about this break after we find Andreas from Nicosia in Cyprus. Stephen potted the black and stunned into the reds, an impressive shot on its own, but the cue ball ran dangerously close to the middle pocket and left him another incredibly tough shot. Being 5-1 up, Stephen was probably incredibly happy with the way the match was going, because you need a lot of confidence to take on shots like these. Again, a shot that isn't incredibly complex, but one you still can't really afford to miss. Stephen didn't even manage to get in good position on the black, but this time managed to stun the cue ball and leave himself perfect on the next red. A perfect position he didn't lose, as he completed another maximum break at the Crucible, which is a nice way to announce the end of your career.
But why not on this list have a look at what Stephen himself considers his greatest ever shot?
I was 14-8 down. I won the frame to go 14-9. Then I made a really good clearance up to the point where I left myself on the red to the yellow pocket. So screwed back, but I never had much angle in it, so I couldn't get the cue ball away from the cushion. So I ended up screwed back to the blue, but obviously landed the wrong angle of the blue to get on the yellow, which was near the baulk cushion. To be honest, I didn't even think twice about playing it brown. I mean, looking back on it now, it's just like a real crazy shot to take on. 14-9 down at the World Championship. If I miss it, Jimmy wins. He's 15 ace, 3 frames away from victory going at the evening session. So yeah, it was a pivotal shot.
This was what John Virgo said was the bravest shot he'd ever seen, because had Stephen had missed this, he'd almost certainly have lost the World Championship that year, instead of making a fantastic comeback. The shot itself was that difficult, I was happy to get it in just 2 attempts. Stephen, however, didn't need 2 attempts and never lost another frame on his way to victory that year.
From that, I can easily say the 3 most difficult shots to play were
these 3 shots in this order, starting with the 3rd most difficult to play, but this only takes into account how hard the shots were for me to play, and doesn't have any bearing on the significance of the shot and how much pressure Stephen would have been under to get it right, because the hardest shot for me to play was the screw shot against Jimmy White. But that doesn't necessarily mean it was Stephen's greatest ever shot.
But why do you think Stephen Hendry's chosen now to return to snooker? Does he just feel like competing again, or is he trying to stop Ronnie winning a 7th world title?
Well, Stephen himself claims this has nothing to do with Ronnie or what any other professional snooker player is currently doing, and is all about Stephen enjoying the game again after competing in the World Seniors. But whatever his reason, he's still signed up to compete on the main tour for at least the next 2 years. And if you want to see more videos like this of me recreating shots, have a look at these 2 videos. And remember, don't just watch, play, and make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel and visit the website. See you later.